CanPL.ca Newsroom for this week. Marty Thompson and Charlie O'Connor-Clarke. Folks, we're at the end of the drought. We've made it. By this time, this time next week, and then also by Monday, we'll have games to talk about. Charlie and I are excited about that. It's been too long trying to find stuff to talk about. I think we've done a great job. I think there's so many great stories in this league. I think we've done a great job with it, but we're finally down to the bread and butter. We're going to throw to an interview with Commissioner David Clanican and Christian Jack at the end of this. We'll throw it in the podcast subscription as we react to yesterday's news about the format of the 2021 CPL season post the kickoff in Winnipeg, presented by Volkswagen. I guess we have to talk about playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. Your thoughts on 4 teams?
I think it's really cool. I think it's going to be really fun. I mean, you can say all you want about, traditional league tables and whatnot, but no, it's going to be really cool to see just 4 of these teams. Because, I mean, all of these teams have kind of armed up so quickly over this offseason. And it just kind of makes sense to give just to make that last little stage of the season a little bit more competitive, especially down maybe the last month of this regular season. And it gives you maybe a little bit more leeway if you're say a York or a Forge that started the season without being able to train, and maybe you have to warm up to game action a little bit more. So it's more forgiving. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is that just knockout games are really awesome. Right?
Yeah.
Like, we're about to see a ton of them in the Euros this weekend, before these CPL matches, of course. And everybody likes knockout football.
Mm-hmm.
It's just always exciting. And I think it'll really be a really good kind of showcase for this league at the end of the year.
Yeah, it just seems to match up well with how the season frankly is going to start, right? Their teams are at a completely different ends of the spectrum. We'll get to that into our match previews here for Saturday. But whether it's training, whether it's preparation, whatever you want to call it, like it's a bit of a crapshoot. So yeah, I mean, I think for that reason, this makes total sense. Of course, we had a 3-team playoff set for 2020. That also seems, intriguing and interesting. But I think 4 teams, 4 teams just makes sense. In the interim. Anything else from yesterday's announcements you want to get to? I mean, other than the fact that it's nice to, I guess, have a format to look forward to after Winnipeg, right?
Yeah. And it's nice. I mean, we already kind of knew that it was the plan, but it's nice to have this confirmation that is going to be a 28-game season.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of interesting to see it explained how the schedule is going to be unbalanced to kind of, minimize travel throughout the rest of the regular season. Where I think it's 16 games against teams in your local region, and what was it, 4?
I think just 4, yeah.
4.
So just 1 trip to each.
Yeah, to each of the other teams, which makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense to me. It's probably just, especially in a year like this where, we don't really know what things are going to be like in a month or two. It's probably the safest option, and I actually might end up working out pretty well in terms of fostering some of these derbies, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're seeing more 9-5 derbies down the stretch, or more El Clasicos, then maybe those rivalries start to grow a little bit more.
Yeah, Ottawa gets to play York and Forge a lot more, and hopefully have something to build off of that. Speaking about Ottawa, it's returned to the stage presented by Volkswagen for a 4th and final week. This week we're looking at Ottawa and Halifax. We'll start in the nation's capital. A couple big changes this week with Ottawa. I know Jordan Webb is going to be missing Winnipeg. There's a couple other big signings. Ryan Telfer is expected to play on Saturday against FC Edmonton. That's the season opener. That's 2 p.m. Eastern time on OneSoccer again on Saturday. But there are some big changes with this team coming in, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously in the last kind of week since they've got to Winnipeg. I mean, yeah, they've announced that unfortunately, Jordan Webb won't be playing in Winnipeg. We're not quite sure what exactly is going to be the situation there. It sounds like it's possible that he's back with the team when they return to Ottawa. But also Bernardinho won't be playing this year, which is, again, really unfortunate because, I mean, he missed out last year, re-signed, was hoping to maybe get into Canada this time around and play these games. Hasn't worked out, which is unfortunate because he seemed like a pretty talented young player, kind of Ghanaian midfielder who I know the club was quite high on, but unfortunately that's not going to work out. But in his place, there's been a lot of players come into this squad recently. I think just a few days ago, Alberto Soto, who is another Atletico Madrid academy player, comes in on loan to this club, and that's kind of insane to me.
We're hearing lots of good things about him on the ground. I believe it was him that was compared to Marco Bustos in what Ottawa thinks he can bring to the CPL, which is a big ask, but I mean, you can kind of see it in his play, right?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen him play, so
I guess I did see him at training. I guess I was the only person there. Haven't slept much this week, if you could believe it or not, folks. What's one? Yeah, and I mean, if we can just close on Ottawa here, like, what's one big question for you coming into the first game? Because I believe you wrote the preview for CanPL.ca, and it all just comes down to the comparing people's preseasons. You have to. Ottawa has spent 2 months in Spain. In preparation for this season and came to the bubble before anybody else, right? If you just like that, you have to, the same way we did this with other teams in previous weeks, we have to talk about that preparation, right? Because it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. And there's no real getting around it. I mean, it's the way it is. Certainly FC Edmonton was Alan Koch was quite outspoken about that yesterday. He because he said that his club is going into this game as clear underdogs, which is
because of the
reasonable.
training. Because of the training.
Yeah. Which is probably reasonable, but it's also a pretty much completely brand new team that hasn't been playing together for particularly long compared to some of the other more consistent CPL teams. And really, all that training won't matter unless they play well, right? And there's definitely a lot of questions about how exactly this squad works, because I don't know how much we can read into the way they played last year, because it wasn't necessarily the squad that Mista wanted to put together. But it'll be interesting to see, especially how they balance this kind of Canadian core, the Drew Beckys, the Chris Manellas, the Ryan Telfers, with some of these really young kind of international players, our Sotos, our Rafael Nunez, Miguel Acosta. It's going to be fascinating to see how this kind of balances out.
So, yeah, as mentioned, Ottawa going to open the kickoff presented by Volkswagen and the 2021 CPL season on Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 4 p.m. Mountain time. Again, that game on OneSoccer. The Halifax Wanderers will follow. That's at 5 p.m. Eastern time on OneSoccer as well against Pacific FC. Let's quickly talk about Halifax. Your initial impressions of this team coming into this season. I mean, you hope for a bit of improvement over last year. They kept something like 14 players, which is, obviously very important in a league like this, and trying to find that continuity. What's your initial impressions going into game 1 against PFC?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see Halifax play. I mean, they were one of the more entertaining teams in the league last year. They were just absolutely deadly on the counterattack. Not a lot of teams had an answer for that. And they're basically the same up front. There's definitely questions in how this team maybe copes with, for example, losing Abu Sissoko, who was a big part of the way they were able to win the ball back in their press last year and play it forwards quickly. And then obviously Christian Vigensa is another big loss. But the general, I think, ethos of this team is the same. They've got the same sort of 4 or 5 attackers, your Garcias and Morellis and Alex Marshalls and so on. So they should be fairly similar. Now, I guess the question will be, will that still work? Like, does that counterattacking style, is it sustainable for success over a longer period of time? I guess we'll see. I don't know. I think it'll be a little bit interesting to see if they do have to adapt to kind of a longer season and maybe to teams figuring them out a little bit, because they're very talented. And I think they might have to, think about adding some more tools to the toolbox.
Hart called this Stephen Hart, coach of the Wanderers, called this like a competitive preseason, which I thought was apt considering their preparations as well. What's one question you want answered from this group? You mentioned like some of the potential additions that they would need to make. Like I guess it's can they keep playing the way that they did at the Island Games, because ultimately it was effective. Not to the very end, not in the final, but ultimately it worked, right?
Yeah, I think the question is definitely, does this kind of counterattacking thing still work? But maybe more specifically, I think the question is probably who can fill that ball winning role in midfield that Sissoko had last year. I mean, it's probably pole position going to Jeremy Gagnon-Labarre. But I think there's some other players, I think Marcelo Polisi had a chance there, and there's a few other new players coming into this mix who would probably fancy themselves as taking on that role. But it's obviously such an important part of the way they play is just being able to press and to punish mistakes, that they need somebody to step up and really claim that job.
Halifax versus Pacific on Saturday. Who you got? Prediction time.
I don't know. I think I would probably lean Pacific, actually.
Yeah, I'm thinking Pacific as well.
Yeah.
Don't punish us if we're wrong, please. Look, this is a competitive preseason. How are we supposed to know? Yeah, I mean this is maybe we can touch on Pacific quickly before we throw to Christian and to David. Like, what's your big thought of this team coming out? Because our team previews have been rolling out this week. And ultimately you go away reading that Pacific preview. Did you write that? I can't remember. Someone wrote it. And I just said we're just being fired up. Like the team just seems that much better, right?
They're just so fun. I just really like watching this Pacific team.
Yeah.
They can just overwhelm pretty much anybody in the league with their attack. And I guess none of it matters again until we see them on the pitch. But I mean, Marco Bustos seems like he's on a bit of, a mission to win that Player of the Year award this year. And that might be really scary, especially when he's got, somebody like MEDIAPRO taking some of the creative burden off of him, especially in the middle. Just let him kind of drift around in the wing channels and score a bunch of goals.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Pacific team is pretty much the same as it was last year, plus some more guys that make them a lot better, which is always kind of what you want your offseason to be. And they're just fascinating, man.
Marco Bustos. Yeah, he's been looking good because he's been on my TV a lot recently.
Yeah.
Okay. One last time before we throw to Commissioner Clanican and Christian Jack. Opening weekend, the 2021 CPL season, 2 p.m. Eastern time for Ottawa versus Edmonton on Saturday, followed by Halifax and Pacific at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then we haven't touched on the games on Sunday yet, and we'll talk about them obviously at length on Monday. Forge versus Valor. That's 2 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. local for Valor fans. And then 5 p.m. Eastern time, Cavalry taking on York. Actually really interested to see that game. That's our come on match of the week as well on OneSoccer. So be sure to tune into that for a few extra surprises. Okay. We'll see you on Monday. And folks, there will be games.
Delighted now to be joined by the CPL Commissioner David Clanican on a really exciting day for Canadian soccer and the Canadian Premier League. David, you've announced a new format for the league in 2021. Please share with us your vision and the format for that with our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, well, thanks, KJ. It's good to see you and obviously talk to you. By the way, congratulations on your work at OneSoccer. Now you've hit the ground running for sure.
Thank you.
But as far as the format's concerned, no, we're very pleased with doing what we're calling the Kickoff in Winnipeg. All 8 teams are on the ground now. We have just under 300 people there. I think it's just over about 275. Happy to report to everyone that we're showing negative results on all the testing we've done. So we're doing what we normally do, and that's adhering to the proper safety protocols. So we're very pleased there. This year we've added a little twist, though. Is one of the things we're talking about is people have been asking us, well, what's the format? We know you're in Winnipeg. You're going to play through to the end of July, and then you're going to go back to home markets, which I've been very clear that's what we want to do. Let's go back to home markets, and the way things are starting to shape up in the country, we're going to be able to do that with fans and supporters in the stands. I couldn't be happier. I feel like it's Christmas Day for me right now. Especially with the announcement today in Ontario, which is good news all around, because that's obviously the province we were worried most about. So yeah, we're very good there. And so we've decided that what we want to do is we want to now bring four teams into the I'll call it the playoff series, with the four teams when they're ranked first through fourth, they'll move forward. 2 single game semifinals, 1 versus 4, and then 2 versus 3. Of course, the 1 and 2 teams would host that single game format. That's why they work so hard, and the matches mean so much throughout everything, KJ. So at the end of the day, we want every match to count, and so they're always going to be striving to be able to have their fans host that semifinal match. The 2 winners will then play off in a 1-game final, and the 2 winners from the semifinal, that team which finishes highest in the standings, again, one more reason to want to be first, right? Mm-hmm. All you do is, if you win in the semifinal game, you get to host the championship match, so a 1-game final. We think that's going to be fantastic. It gets us to where we want to be, and we'll have a full season in. We'll play all of our games like we had planned, and a good playoff and championship round, so that we can crown our champion. We think it's we were dealt lemons, so to speak, in Canada this year, and I think we've made lemonade out of it with this solution. So we're very pleased.
Yeah, really a lot of things to be pleased about. Let's dissect it and get into some of the information you mentioned. Obviously, expanding it to 4 teams. I know that's what we had last year at the Island Games as well, but a completely different format, really, with a tournament. Why was it imperative for you and the league to expand it there? Is it just because it's a bit of a unbalanced schedule? And also, as you mentioned, the illusion that almost every game is so important, and I can really imagine the really excitement to get into that top 4 as the season goes on.
Yeah, and you've hit it right on, KJ. The bottom line is that we definitely we have an unbalanced schedule, just the way that we're doing it. And why we're doing the bit of the unbalanced schedule is really to keep the travel and the exposure for our players, so it's safety of our players, but also making sure that we get to play games at home. But we want to keep travel to a minimum. So the back half of the year after we leave Winnipeg, there'll be some unbalanced that. So that's caused most of that. But we see it as a great opportunity, right? By adding another team in, similar to what we did in PEI in the Island Games. I saw it last year, that last weekend, you know, when I was sitting with very few fans in the stands that were allowed into the Island Games venue. It was amazing that last weekend, because we had 7 teams literally that were still in the hunt to make it to the final. I'll call it the final 4, to steal someone else's expression. Right. But we also had the 8th team who could have been a spoiler for somebody as well. So everybody was in it to win it that weekend, and you want that. It's something that I admire about other leagues across the sea, so to speak, that they kind of use promotion relegation as a tool to keep everybody interested, right? This is another way of doing it for us right now in where we are as a league, but I think it's going to work really well, and Canadians are going to love it.
I think so too. You talked also about what you learned last year from the Island Games, and the rivalries are really starting to get going, aren't they, in the league? And rivalries are important in all sports, are they not? You know, to have that kind of a little bit of friendly conflict, a little bit, and have that banter between fans. What you're going to now have is that the teams that are playing each other in the Winnipeg bubble right now will only play each other 4 times. Those out of regional games. The teams that aren't playing each other in the bubble right now will play each other, you know, collectively 16 times, you know, against 3 different opponents. That's really excitement as well. I know there's a lot of games against a lot of similar teams, but to gather that kind of rivalry is going to be an interesting momentum as well.
Well, I think you're 100% right. I mean, we have some of those natural rivalries, easy for me to say, that have happened over the first couple of years, whether it be 2019 and then obviously the Island Games. We all know Cavalry, Forge FC, it's a tinderbox. We know that, but we're seeing it with the 905 derby with York United and Forge. We know that's going to be there. We know that FC Edmonton and Cavalry have got that rivalry. Everyone wants to play Pacific because they've got a bit of a swagger to them because they're from Vancouver Island. And of course, you've got the guys that have gone from last to runners up last year at HFX Wanderers, who are really kind of a relatively young team that are really feeling it themselves. So competition is all there. And don't forget, you've got Valor, who always feels like they're in the middle of the country and get forgotten.
Yes.
And Atletico Ottawa, who hasn't played a game in their own stadium yet, and everyone's going to want to be in Ottawa for the first time they get to play, because I can tell you, there's a pent-up demand for live professional football in that marketplace.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm really excited about that team and the way that they formatted that team as well in the offseason in Ottawa. We'll get to getting into market shortly. Just a quick word before we do about what's coming. Obviously, Kickoff in Winnipeg in the bubble this weekend. It's been over 9 months since our league has really kicked a ball in anger and we've awarded a trophy. What does it say about the clubs, the owners, the players, everybody within this league, David, that they've had the perseverance and the patience and the strength to get through this difficult time for everybody? And now here we go, getting ready to start a new season.
Yeah, that's a great point. Our owners have been nothing but patient, but they preached patience to me when they invited me to come aboard this project, so to speak. So I fully expected that, but they've shown tremendous patience, incredible patience. Our players and coaches and staff have done a great job. The league office has been good. I think, when I look at it and I look back, we've maintained our creativity, which we showed we had that DNA in 2019. We've shown that we're nimble and that we're prepared to try things and that we believe in the game and we won't go dark. We believe it's important to do it, but we're always going to. We're a bit of rule followers. We're kind of that way in Canada, anyways. So the fact that we're prepared to do it that way and work with people, I think that brings you along, right? And in the communities where we play football, people respect that. And I think we've garnered a good level of that respect. We still have to prove ourselves every single day. Every time we go out on the pitch, we've got to be better. And I honestly, as I look at the teams as they're being put together this year and seeing all the players that have been signed, I really like the way the clubs are coming together. There's an even deeper level of thought about how they're building their clubs. So I just think the rivalries will be great, but the matches will be excellent, and the format just plays into that.
Yeah, I agree with that. The standard of the sport will go up, no question about it. David, I know there's a lot of people listening to this who are big fans of their teams and just cannot wait to get them back in the stadium, to put their scarves, their shirts on, to go and sing their songs and to cheer on their local teams. Share with us, if you can, some of the ideas you have. I know obviously nothing is in place right now, but coming out of the bubble, we expect it to be games potentially, as you said, into home markets. How do you see that with fans right away in certain areas? And give us a little bit of a timeline, what you're looking at there.
Well, there's no doubt. Right now, it's looking like the most of the markets will be open. We don't know for sure until the provinces, basically, until they actually give it to us in writing and they announce it. Right? We know there's going to be lots of protocols wrapped around that. Could be anywhere from 25% to 50% in most of the markets, but we don't know. And again, we can't work off of innuendo and rumors. We need it in writing. We need to see the protocols. We need to be ready and make sure that it's seamless for our fans and supporters, because we know that they're going to come back in droves. They're going to want to be there and experience that. The good news is they'll have enough confidence in the fact that we do things right. They'll feel good about coming to the games. I would say, and I said this, on an interview from PEI the other day, basically saying that, the best thing that we all can do as Canadians is get our vaccines. Get our vaccines. It's important. You look at what's happening in the country right now with the amount of vaccines that are out there and the second doses. That's important. It's important to the country, but it's also important to live sport and also to be able to go and enjoy the events that we love the most. And in Canada, we love live sports. So I think that's one message I'd like to put out there. But we're gonna have some fun this summer. That's for sure, KJ.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of fun this summer. The fans will be back, and we're really excited to welcome them. Envision a moment after that, then. You know what it's like in Canada. It's a beautiful time in fall. It starts to get a bit cooler. Then comes the playoffs. You talked about it earlier. I know in 2019 there was the brilliant rivalry you alluded to earlier between Cavalry and Forge about the two-legged playoff. We had that game last year at the Island Games, that one-off. Talk to us a little bit about how excited you are to have that one-game final to award a champion in 2021.
Well, certainly the one game final is very interesting for us because, I mean, you think about it, it's one game, it's 90 minutes, 90 minutes extra time if needed.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's going to be decided on that day. And so the focus, that championship day and the lead up to that championship day, I think I don't know who would be more nervous at that point in time, the coaches and the players, or the fans and supporters, depending on which teams are in, right? But I just know that there's a huge build up to it. It's something that everyone's looking forward to, and it gets really passionate. And so, having been to some of the largest matches in the world overseas, it's an unbelievable experience. And it's not a 2 or 3 hour experience. It's a 2, 3, 4, 5 day experience for some. Right. I was at the Champions League final in Madrid a couple of years ago, and I know for a fact there were 20,000 Liverpool fans that were in Madrid that didn't even have tickets for the game. Right. So that's what happens, right? And so I think it's going to be a great final, no matter which team is in it. And I'm hoping we get a lot of travel from fans. We know that people will be ready for that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting 2021. As you said earlier, we didn't know how it was going to look, but 112 match season with playoffs and a final and a champion awarded in November. We cannot wait. David, congratulations on getting to this news and to getting this stage here. I know you deserve a ton of credit, and you've got a great team around you as well. Thanks so much for your time today, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right, KJ, thanks very much. And also, I do want to thank the province of Manitoba and the municipality of Winnipeg. They've done such a great job for us. They've opened their doors to us, their hearts, their minds, their doors. And we're very, very pleased to be kicking off in one of our home markets. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, well, very well said. A reminder, Kickoff starts on Saturday, 1:30 Eastern on OneSoccer as we get going with FC Edmonton against Atletico Ottawa.